Support for the roundup comes from Symphony 3. Councils around the country are working hard to keep their communities safe and prepared before, during and after emergencies such as bushfires and floods. And in recent weeks, Symphony 3 has been working with councils around Victoria, including Greater Bendigo, Mildura, Ararat and Golden Plains, to create emergency dashboards, pulling together live data including weather, traffic, emergency incidents, unplanned and planned disruptions, news and social media feeds. An emergency dashboard is cost-effective and can be deployed in just 3 days. Find out more at www.symphony3.com. Just ahead, a Bendigo councillor ordered to apologise after a misconduct finding. Queenscliffe's new CEO announced a call for offshore wind farms to pay their fair share to local communities. The New South Wales government set to oversee senior executive appointments at Shoalhaven. Industrial action disrupts services at Blacktown. Press scrutiny prompts a major change to Gold Coast's travel policy. And a second WA council to be overseen by a monitor over governance concerns. All of that and more just ahead on the Local Government News Roundup, including Tasmanian councils keeping a watching brief on the introduction of a 4-day work week. It's your Friday edition of the Local Government News Roundup, brought to you by the VLGA, the national broadcaster on all things local government, with support from Symphony 3, simple, connected customer experiences. Thanks for joining me wherever you're listening across Australia or around the world. It's Friday the 13th of February. Heading our Victorian report, Greater Bendigo councillor Owen Cosgriff has been found guilty of misconduct after allegedly slamming his fist on a table and storming out of a meeting. Arbiter Noel Harvey also found that an email and meeting comments about staff constituted misconduct in that they were disrespectful and contributed to an unsafe and uncomfortable working environment. One allegation about failure to attend Heritage Board meetings was not upheld and found to be a result of a misunderstanding rather than deliberate misconduct. Councillor Cosgriff has been ordered to publicly apologise, with the arbiter finding that the misconduct fell at the lower end of the scale of severity. The incidents largely stemmed from tensions over the Bendigo Writers' Festival. Councillor Cosgriff told the Bendigo Advertiser that his forceful expression was legitimate political debate and that, quote, all Victorians ought to be concerned by the chilling effect on robust debate a report such as this may have, unquote. A council spokesperson said the council respects the outcome of the investigation and is focused on supporting all councillors to move forward constructively. The arbitration report will be tabled at Monday's meeting of the council, and the apology by Councillor Cosgriff must occur at the following council meeting, scheduled for the 16th of March. The Borough of Queenscliffe Council has announced Jane Grover as its new Chief Executive Officer. Ms Grover brings extensive leadership experience from both public and private sectors, including her previous role as CEO of the Southern Metropolitan Cemeteries Trust. Mayor Donnie Grigar says she's well suited to lead the small coastal council through its current challenges. Ms Grover will focus on strengthening services, governance and community engagement when she starts on the 16th of March. Michael Tudball has been assisting the council as interim CEO in recent weeks after the departure of Martin Gill late last year. Wellington Shire Council is seeking support for a call to the Victorian State Government to ensure offshore wind farms contribute their fair share to local communities. At its meeting next week, the council will consider a motion for submission to the MAV State Council requesting support for a payment in lieu of rates framework for offshore wind electricity generators. Currently, onshore wind, solar and battery projects contribute to local government services through this framework, but offshore wind farms are exempt. With major offshore wind developments planned for Gippsland and Western Victoria, Wellington Shire says local councils need these funds to maintain critical infrastructure and services. The council argues that applying the same framework to offshore wind would create fair market conditions and ensure all electricity generators contribute equally to the communities they affect. Strathbogie Shire Council has opened a new recovery hub in Euroa to support residents affected by recent fires. The hub at 34 Railway Street brings together government agencies, wellbeing providers and recovery specialists under one roof. Minister for Emergency Services Vicky Ward and Mayor Scott Jeffrey officially opened the facility on Wednesday morning. A glitch that caused the wrong rates bill to be sent to 140 ratepayers in Mornington Peninsula Shire was caused by a new automated computer system. The Mornington Peninsula Leader reported that the error also affected 4 other councils that also moved to the new system. A council spokesperson apologised to the affected property owners and said it was seeking urgent rectification of the issue from the software provider. And Moyne Shire Council has called for specialist consultants to investigate the Port Fairy indoor pool's condition and safety. The comprehensive technical report will assess structural integrity, mould issues and provide short and long-term maintenance cost forecasts. Separately, the council has launched the Moyne Aquatic Facilities Strategy to guide future planning for pools across the entire Shire. Also happening now, Banyule Council's Olympic Leisure Centre has been closed after a fire yesterday. The fire on the roof was contained by emergency services and there were no reported injuries. The centre is expected to be closed for several days. Greater Shepparton Council says its second quarter community satisfaction results show improvements across all measured areas, significant increases in areas including maternal and child health, customer service and overall council direction. The results come as survey activity begins in many other council areas across the state for the annual Community Satisfaction Survey. And Ararat Council is reminding pet owners to register and microchip their animals after almost all dogs collected last year were unregistered. Around 50% of collected dogs weren't microchipped either. In news out of New South Wales, the government will oversee senior recruitment at Shoalhaven City Council following concerns about the hiring of former Liberal Minister Andrew Constance as the council's GM. ABC News reported that the Local Government Minister, Ron Honig, has questions about transparency and impartiality in the council's recruitment processes. Under the terms of a draft performance improvement order, the Office of Local Government will now have oversight of all senior leadership appointments. Earlier this week, Mayor Patricia White said she had confidence in the process that had been used and called for the release of the evidence leading to the claims made by the government. The council is due to discuss the draft PIO at an extraordinary meeting today. Blacktown City Council services were disrupted earlier this week due to 24-hour industrial action. Garbage collection in more than 24 suburbs was delayed on Wednesday and Thursday. Parks maintenance, street cleaning and splash parks were all affected. The council expects to catch up on services over the weekend. The New South Wales Government has rejected a request to provide rate relief to 16 residents displaced by the New Lambton landslip in May last year. Newcastle Council is disappointed by the decision, noting the state provided $40 million in rates relief to Northern Rivers disaster victims, but nothing for Newcastle residents. The council is proceeding with its own donation process to grant financial assistance equal to rates paid, costing ratepayers $45,600. A geotechnical report into the landslip is currently under peer review and expected in late February. Campbelltown Council has passed a motion to investigate the environmental and health impacts of fireworks, according to a report from the Daily Telegraph. Deputy Mayor Jayden Rivera, who brought the motion, says fireworks release toxic chemicals and harm wildlife. Several councillors expressed scepticism, but agreed to support a report on alternatives like drone shows. Mayor Darcy Lowndes says recent fireworks displays received outstanding feedback from the community. Lismore City Council will investigate issuing dwelling entitlements to vacant rural lots with suitable building sites. Councillor Andrew Gordon believes the approach could rapidly increase flood-free housing using existing land and infrastructure. The proposal would allow landowners to build homes on vacant rural lots that currently lack dwelling entitlements. The council says the move could deliver more flood-free housing potential than all other residential subdivisions combined. And in more Lismore news, the council has voted to accept the former Greyhound track in Molesworth Street as a gift from Greyhound Racing New South Wales. The site hasn't operated since the devastating floods of early 2022, and will no longer host greyhound racing. The council will conduct property checks, classify the land as operational, and run a 30-day expression of interest process to test flood-aware proposals. Glen Innes Severn Council has ramped up its campaign for practical planning reforms in regional New South Wales. It's written to Planning Minister Paul Scully with proposals to speed up housing approvals. Key reforms include streamlined building applications for low-risk housing and faster rezoning pathways. The council is seeking a meeting with the minister to discuss its proposals. Bega Valley Shire has hit pause on traffic changes planned for Marimbula's CBD, according to About Regional. The $2.8 million upgrade project will now undergo further community consultation. Councillors unanimously voted to defer accepting a tender for temporary road infrastructure. And Snowy Monaro Regional Council has released the results of its community satisfaction survey, which included a question about a proposed demerger. The survey showed a modest improvement in average satisfaction and 59% support for development of a demerger business case. A report on the latter will come before the council next week. Also happening in New South Wales, a new councillor at Canterbury Bankstown after a countback election to replace Carl Saleh, who resigned last month. The successful candidate is Hardy Saleh, who was declared the new Roselands Ward councillor this week. The New South Wales Government has invited councils across the state to nominate suitable sites to host electric vehicle charging infrastructure. There are currently more than 400 fast charging locations across New South Wales, with additional sites needed by 2031 to meet projected demand. And Wagga Wagga City Council will advocate for increased paediatric services in the Riverina region to meet growing demand. It's concerned about the significant impact that current service gaps are having on children, families and carers, and will seek government support for the establishment of a dedicated emergency department and specialist services in Wagga Wagga. This is your Friday edition of the Local Government News Roundup, episode number 550, brought to you by the VLGA with a new edition of VLGA Connect coming away later today on YouTube and podcast, with lots to catch you up on, including interviews with Sean Morrison, the Victorian Information Commissioner. What should councillors be concerned about and aware of when it comes to the use of generative AI? That's the issue we're discussing, and Tony Brownick will drop by with his take on new rates hardship guidelines introduced for Victorian councils. Look for it later today on VLGA Connect. Let's head to Queensland now, where Gold Coast Council CEO Tim Baker has overhauled travel rules after it was revealed by the Gold Coast Bulletin that he and the Mayor have been signing off on each other's international trips. Future overseas travel by the CEO and officers will now be submitted to the Council for approval. The change comes ahead of Mr Baker's fifth international trip in 12 months to Los Angeles. Acting Mayor Mike Hamill says the review is a sensible step that strengthens accountability. Somerset Regional Council has thrown its hat in the ring to host Olympic rowing events at Wivenhoe Dam for the 2032 Brisbane Olympics. Mayor Jason Wendt says the dam is less than 60 minutes from Brisbane's CBD and has previously hosted competitive rowing. The Brisbane Times reported the move comes as another South East Queensland council, Moreton Bay, pushes its own rowing venue proposal. Both Labor and the Crisafulli government continue to back the controversial Rockhampton Fitzroy River plan for Olympic rowing. A Redlands City councillor has rejected a developer's offer to buy back into a dumped shopping centre project at Redland Bay Marina, according to the Brisbane Times this morning. The masthead says councillor Roanne McKenzie has accused developer Don O'Rourke of leaking confidential information after the council scrapped the $250 million Coles-anchored development late last year. The developer has questioned whether the decision benefits a local competitor with family links to the council's CEO. The council will now rely on the state government to build only a car park at the site. Rockhampton Regional Council will convene an urgent roundtable meeting with state and federal government representatives to discuss solutions to homelessness in the region. It follows a motion from Mayor Tony Williams this week in response to the Rockhaven Community Consultation and Site Planning Report. Ipswich will get a new 160-room Hilton Garden Inn in the city centre, with construction set to begin late this year. The $53 million development will create 150 construction jobs and 50 permanent positions when it opens in late 2028. Sunshine Coast Council is scrapping paid parking in Calandra's CBD just 16 months after installing $800,000 worth of new meters. That's according to Sunshine Coast News. It says free parking will return from March the 2nd, though time limits will remain to ensure turnover. And Fraser Coast Regional Council has acknowledged community concerns about safety in the Maryborough CBD. The council is working with state agencies, including police, health and housing, through an operational group, and staff are monitoring the area and reporting issues to Queensland Police, who have sole authority to deal with criminal behaviour. To Tasmania, as Launceston City Council pushes ahead with a controversial 4-day work week for its 600 staff, other councils in the state are keeping a watching brief. The Mercury sought views on the likelihood of the matter being considered at other councils. It said Hobart City Council declined to comment, and Clarence City Council has recently finalised its agreement, meaning it won't be on their agenda for some time. There's been no discussion on the idea at Kingborough so far, and Burnie Mayor Teeny Brumby warns of unintended consequences from a compressed working week at small to mid-size councils. Launceston CEO Sam Johnson insists it's a strategic response to wage pressures at his council, offering just a 1% pay rise while rolling back superannuation contributions. South Australia's city of Burnside is pushing for urgent legislative reform to tackle the growing problem of long-term vehicle storage on public streets. The council has received nearly 300 complaints in the past year, with commercial operators routinely parking damaged or deteriorating vehicles in residential areas for weeks or months at a time. Current South Australian laws leave councils powerless to act when vehicles are legally parked, even if they remain in place indefinitely. Burnside is advocating for a framework similar to New South Wales, which allows councils to remove vehicles after set timeframes with proper notice. Western Australia's new local government inspector Tony Brown has appointed a monitor to the city of Nedlands. Former state MP and Mayor of Joondalup until last year, Albert Jacob, will work with the incoming council on resolving serious governance issues that led to the council's dismissal last year. Local Government Minister Hannah Beasley welcomed the appointment, which comes ahead of an election on March 28. She's urged residents and ratepayers to get involved by researching candidates and voting for those they think will best represent their community. Nedlands is the second WA city to be overseen by a monitor after a similar intervention recently announced at the City of Perth. The town of Claremont has appointed John Pearson as its new Chief Executive Officer after a competitive process that drew 61 applicants. Mr Pearson currently serves as Director of Corporate Services of the City of Rockingham and previously led the Shire of Derby West Kimberley as CEO. He'll start on the 2nd of June, with interim CEO Tim Clinch continuing until then. Fremantle Council has unanimously voted to change planning rules for convenience stores. The stores will now require development approval and public advertising, moving from an allowed use to a discretionary use. Councillors cited concerns about criminal activity, including fire bombings near convenience stores, which have more than doubled in Fremantle in the past 15 months. The move follows extensive advocacy by the city for state government action on the issue since October 2024. And the city of Melville is set to ban artificial turf on roadside verges after residents voted unanimously for the change at an annual meeting, according to Perth Now. Environmental concerns include synthetic turf reaching temperatures of 60 to 70 degrees on warm days, and concerns about microplastics entering soils and waterways. The city's CEO says while it's currently allowed, the preference is for natural turf or vegetation to increase cooling and biodiversity. Councillors will consider the motion at their February 17 meeting. Support for the Local Government News Roundup comes from Symphony 3. You've heard all about their disaster dashboard. Many councils catching on to the simplicity and the effectiveness of this dashboard solution, which can be deployed in just 3 days. You should talk to the team at Symphony 3 to find out more about their disaster dashboard. Just head to symphony3.com to find out more. Now for our global report with news today from the US, New Zealand and the UK, where we start. Bedford Borough's elected Mayor Tom Wooten has blamed systemic mismanagement for the council's financial troubles as government inspectors prepare to step in. The Conservative Mayor has welcomed a best value inspection announced this week, and he appeared to call for the Chief Executive's resignation, according to the Bedford Independent. The intervention follows concerns about governance, a rejected budget, downgraded children's services and a £55 million bailout request. Councils under government intervention have spent more than £1.6 million on staff and consultants to support commissioners and envoys, according to an exclusive report from the MJ. This comes on top of £9.5 million paid for commissioners and improvement panels across 10 council interventions over the past 4 years. Worcestershire councillor David Taylor has resigned from Reform UK, citing his opposition to plans for a council tax increase of up to 10%. He says residents in his constituency cannot afford to pay more while receiving fewer services. The council is facing effective bankruptcy with £600 million in debt. Aberdeen City Council is seeking external contractors to remove around 100 illegally attached flags from lampposts after its own workers faced verbal abuse and threats. The flags were put up following a social media campaign linked to anti-asylum protests. Flying flags from lampposts is banned under Scottish road safety laws. West Dunbartonshire Council has also tried to hire contractors for similar work, but received no bids, according to BBC News. Cumberland Council is set to receive £1 million from the Nuclear Decommissioning Authority to help offset the costs of hosting the Sellafield nuclear site. The funding will be paid in 2 instalments of £500,000 each over 2 years. And localgov.co.uk reports that a coalition of northern mayors and leaders has proposed that the north of England should host a future Olympic and Paralympic Games. 12 regional leaders, including mayors from South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, Liverpool City region and the North East, have written to the Culture Secretary. They argue the North already has the infrastructure and experience to deliver the Games and say hosting the Olympics would bring long-term investment in transport, housing and skills to the region. To the US and the state of Maine, where former Worcester City Councillor Ethel Haxiage has been convicted of assault and battery on a police officer, but acquitted of interference charges, according to USA Today. The incident occurred in May during a US Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrest. Haxiage maintains she was performing her elected duties and didn't intend to touch the officer. District Court Judge Zachary Hillman sentenced her to 6 months probation and 40 hours of community service. She lost her re-election bid for the council last November. Major US cities have seen a dramatic drop in violent crime last year, according to new data from the Major Cities Chiefs Association. Homicides fell by more than 19%, robberies dropped nearly 20%, and aggravated assaults declined by almost 10%. CNN reported the decline follows a spike in violent crime during the COVID-19 pandemic and represents what experts are calling an historic collapse in the homicide rate. In New Zealand, Tauranga City Council has appointed retired High Court Judge Paul Davison KC to lead an independent review into the Mount Maunganui beachside holiday park landslide on January 22nd. Mr Davison, who appeared before major inquiries including the Erebus disaster, will examine the decision-making processes and risk assessments leading up to the tragedy. The review will consider whether safety monitoring systems were adequate and identify lessons for future improvements. Mayor Mahi Drysdale says the appointment ensures a robust and transparent process. The review is expected to be completed by mid-year and is separate from the recently announced government inquiry. And Tauranga City Council has named Dame Kerry Prendergast as independent chair of its Audit and Risk Committee. Dame Kerry is the former mayor of Wellington from 2001 to 2010 and brings decades of governance expertise to the role. You've been listening to the Local Government News Roundup. That's another week in the can. This was episode number 550, recorded on the morning of Friday the 13th of February. And all brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association, the national broadcaster on all things local government, with support from Symphony 3, simple, connected customer experiences. Head to lgnewsroundup.com for more details about the episode, including all the story links. The Local Government News Roundup is recorded in the city of Greater Geelong, Victoria, on the land of the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation. Lots of exciting things to tell you about next week. Hope you'll come back. Until then, thanks for listening, and bye for now.